We're in a study in the book of Exodus, and last week we left Moses at the top of the mountain, right at the top of the mountain with God, and God had given him the 10 commandments and then a whole lot of other commandments about just society and different laws for society. Now, in case you grew up in a Sunday school that kind of gave you the picture that Moses went up once and God gave him all the laws, like, this downloading file. And then after a while it got downloaded and then he came down. And that was it. That's not how the story went. Okay, Moses goes up, he gets the 10 commandments, and if you watch in that was 23, right? All the way to chapter 23, he gets all these commands and laws from God, which we talked about last week. And then in 24, God tells Moses, come up to the Lord. That means Moses was down, right? He says, come up to the Lord. You and Aaron and Nadab and Abihu and the 70 elders of Israel worship from afar. Moses alone shall come near to the Lord, but the others shall not come near, and the people shall not even come up the mountain. So the elders get to come up the mountain, but only Moses gets to go near God. And very importantly, in chapter 24, verse 3 onwards, really important passage, crucial to today's story. Moses came and told the people all the words of the Lord and all the rules, and all the people answered with one voice and said, all the words that the Lord has spoken, we will do. And Moses wrote down all the words of the Lord. He rose early in the morning. He built an altar at the foot of the mountain and 12 pillars according to the 12 tribes of Israel. And he sent young men of the people of Israel who offered burnt offerings and sacrificed peace offerings of oxen to the Lord. And Moses took half the blood and he does all this stuff. And verse 9, Then Moses and Aaron and Nadab and Abihu and the 70 elders of Israel went up. And they saw the God of Israel. And there was under his feet as if it were a pavement of sapphire stone, like the very heaven for clearness. And he did not, that's God, did not lay a hand on the chief of men, of the people of Israel. They beheld God. And there in the presence of God, they ate and they drank. Now you just sang, okay, those songs, clothed in rainbows of living color and how great is our God and those kind of songs. God is a big God. I hope you got the picture that the worship team was painting for you. God is a big God, and just when you think you understood him, you fooled yourself. Okay? You've not even come close. He is that big. He's humongously huge and majestic. And in the presence of this God, they get together and they eat and drink and they just, what an honor, what a privilege for them. And then God calls up Moses even higher. And he says, come and wait there, that I might give you the tablets of stones with the law and the commandment. Remember the 10 commandments? God had written it. God's own handwriting. How's that for being personal? God's own handwriting. God tells Moses the commands and then he writes it down on these stone tablets. And he calls Moses and he says, you come up further on. Remember he said Aaron and all will stay there. He says, Moses, you come up further on. You come near. And I will give you instructions. And I'm going to jump from chapter 25 onwards. Okay. All the way down to chapter 32. That's 7 chapters of Exodus we're going to skip. And it's not because they're boring. They are fascinating. I've read them 4 times this 1 week. Because they're that fascinating. It's all instruction. And it's all instruction about the tabernacle of God. About the temple of God in the tent. Not the temple that David would get instructions for later. But that Moses would get because they were roaming around. Remember, they're nomads in the wilderness. So every time they would stop, they had to set up a place to worship God, this temple. And God gives them instructions. He gives Moses the instructions on how that tent would look and what was going to be inside it. And that's chapter 24 or chapter 25 all the way to chapter 31. Okay? Now I didn't just give you a brief on that because we're not going to look at it. We are going to look at it, but we're going to look at it next week. And I'll tell you why in advance. Because today we're going to look at chapter 32 all the way to chapter 33. 2 chapters. And next week we bring this whole series to a close because the last part of the book is how Israel obeyed chapter 25 to chapter 31. And so we're going to put all the law of the Lord in place and look at how Israel obeyed it next week. And that will bring the whole series to a close. But this week we're going to come at chapter 32. We want to land on chapter 32. Now you got to paint that picture in your head. Moses is up there. He's been up there with God. And down the mountain, somewhere lower down, was Aaron and all the other elders of Israel. Joshua was somewhere up there as well. He was a commander of the armies of Moses and of Israel at the time. So he was up there as well on the mountain. And for some reason, by chapter 32, Aaron and the elders are down. Back down with the people. Joshua is not. Joshua is still up in the mountain. And Aaron has come down, and it has been 40 days. 40 days from now, Christmas is over. That's 40 days. Okay? 40 days from now, you'll be at New Year. Or maybe already in the New Year. 40 days from now, for most of you, you've finished your exams, you've gone home, you've met your family, and you're already on your way back. 40 days is a long time. It's all your plans that you made, and you put money towards for this next few months, 40 days, and it's over. 40 days is a long time. And Moses was up there for 40 days. Now keep in mind, Moses was meeting God. And Mount Sinai, remember I told you, way back in I think chapter 20, Mount Sinai is scary when God meets Moses. It's just flashes of lightning and the whole place is covered in mist. So much so that the people are like, we don't even want to go close. We're scared. Okay, God tells them, don't come close, you'll die. I'm sure someone back over there is going like, I wasn't even planning to. That stuff is scary, man. There's 600,000 of us and I'm going to be right at the back of the whole lot. Okay, I'm as far from this thing as possible because it's scary. But God's up there, and so all this activity is still happening up there. There's a thick fog, it's covered, and there's peals of thunder, and God is speaking to Moses up there. And down in the valley, chapter 32, you find the story of Israel's sin. Right at the foot of the mountain that God is meeting with their leader on. You find the story of Israel's sin. And what I want to do this evening, and I believe that that's kind of how Scripture is written for us, is I want to put before you the leadership of Aaron and the leadership of Moses on display. And we're going to look at how they both compare. And it's some principles on leadership, but each of you are leaders in your own right. Each of you, someone is following you, even if it's only your sibling. Somebody is looking at you. Someone is going to follow you. Maybe you think no one's following you right now, but somewhere down the line, you will realize people were looking at you. And when people do, when someone is following you, you're a leader because someone's following. And here's some important principles that you will learn from these two people. The first principle, or should I tell you the story first? We'll just go through the story and then we'll come back and look at the principles. Right at the bottom over there, Aaron's there, the people come up to him and they're like, 40 days, no sign. Maybe something happened up there. None of us are going to go up and check because we're scared. So, Aaron, Moses is not there, Joshua is not there. That pillar of cloud is, it's just sitting on top of the mountain now. The cloud and the fire together are up there. We have nowhere to go. We need to get out of this place. You make us some gods that will lead us out of here. And so Aaron says, okay, fine. He get all the gold together. He melts it all. He builds a golden calf for them. And they start worshipping it and dancing around it. And Moses comes down the mountain. We're going to look at it in a little more detail. But Moses comes down the mountain. He loses his cool. And he's like, what? And those tablets with God's handwriting, he smashes them. And he comes up to the people and he exacts his punishment on them. He goes to them and he burns that calf. And he corrects them. And we're going to look at that in detail as well. And then he looks at Aaron and he has this really interesting conversation with Aaron. And then he goes back up to meet with God and to talk with God. And that's kind of the story in a very skeleton form. Because we're going to look at it bit by bit and compare them now. The first thing you see about Aaron, and we're going to get, again, I told you I'm a good preacher, so 3 points, okay? 3 on each side, so it's actually 6. But we're going to just compare them in three different categories. The first thing that Aaron did, his mistake, is that Aaron gave in to the people. Aaron quickly gave in to the people. Look with me in chapter 32, verse 1. When the people saw that Moses delayed to come down from the mountain, the people gathered themselves together to Aaron and said to him, Up! Now, I want you to realize their tone of voice, okay? This is Aaron. God said, I will make Moses like God to Pharaoh, and Aaron will be like a prophet. These guys had been in slavery for 400 years, and suddenly Moses and Aaron show up. And Aaron is the guy who did a lot of the talking on their, in fact, he did all the talking on their behalf to Pharaoh. And so Aaron's not just, some random fellow who was sleeping in the back of his tent. Aaron's the next leader. Aaron is Moses' brother, older brother. And this is a culture that was a lot like ours, an Eastern culture, where there was a lot of respect. And the elder brothers and the elder siblings, they had a lot of rights and respect in the home. So this is not just anybody they went up to. They go up to Aaron. Powerful Aaron. But there's 600,000 of them. And they sent their leaders, or whoever, the loudmouth was, the spokesperson. They send them. And he goes up to Aaron. Those people go up to Aaron. And they look at him and say, Up. Up. Make us gods. Now, why I said it was critical, chapter 24, is because Moses came down the mountain. See, it's not that they had no clue what was happening up there. Moses had come down and he told them the law of God. It's just that he hadn't shown them the tablets yet, but he came down and told them the rules. So they knew that God said, I am your God, I am one. They knew that God had said, don't make an idol. You will not bow down before an image. And yet they say, make us gods. They didn't even say God. They didn't even say, make us a God. They say, make us